Well, thank you, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, for joining this presentation here tonight. This is a first. So I'd like to just start by introducing myself. My name is Keith Walters, and I am the Executive Secretary for the EOT FOA Board of Directors, Executive Board, whatever you'd call it. And I've actually been officiating for a number of years. And at the beginning of my involvement with the EOT FOA, which is a tough thing to say, we should change that. I had limited involvement because at the same time I was just starting a business. So I actually only did about maybe 15, 20 games a year for the first probably several years of my career. So I kind of had a bit of a slow start. But over the past few years, I've jumped in with both feet. I've really, really gotten involved, and I love it. It's absolutely a passion for me, and I absolutely love officiating. So glad to speak with people that may want to do the same. I'd say the highlight of my career personally was last year's Interprovincial Bowl. I got to officiate, or championship, I should say. I got to officiate the Bantam game at the TD Place, and that was incredible. For those of you who have ever played a game at TD Place, there's a certain vibe to it. It's a really cool experience to get on that field and help to call a game. So I really enjoyed that. I'm also a ball boy slash ball coordinator for the CFL, which is it's really an indescribable rush to run out in front of 24,000 people and grab a loose football and try not to get killed. And it's a lot of running, but it truly is. It's a remarkably fun time, and I get to do that because I'm a member of the association. So just one of the many possible avenues for people who join the association. So before we get to the meat and potatoes of the presentation, I just want to talk a little bit about why people become officials. So when people signed up for this presentation, we actually asked you, what is it that caught your interest in officiating? And most of you said the same thing. Most of you said that you love football and you want to be more involved with football. And I'd say that that's a fantastic place to start. I actually used to play for the Nepean Rams back in the 1800s when they existed. And I have been a complete and utter fan of football ever since. And I would have to say, personally, I believe that there is no better way to stay connected with the sport of football than by becoming an official. We have a phenomenal opportunity as officials to help guide the game, to help players and coaches, and ensure that it's a fun and positive and safe experience for everybody that's involved. It's also a great way to give back to the community, as some of you said you'd like to do, which is very nice. You can make some fantastic friends, as we all have on this call here today. And you can even earn a few shekels while you're doing it. So you're doing something you love. You have a couple extra bucks for Christmas. So all in all, it's a tremendously positive way to be part of the community. The reasons to join our association are many, and we hope that you're going to get what you need from this session to help you take the next step. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to our esteemed referee-in-chief, Don Wilcox, who is going to tell you a bit about who he is and what an official actually is from an official's perspective. So over to you, Don.
Hey, thanks very much, Keith. Appreciate it. And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in. So who are we? EOT FOA services tackle football from Cornwall and the Seaway, up through Hawkesbury along the Quebec border, through Ottawa, and all the way through the Ottawa Valley. It's a huge territory. So if you like to travel, we can accommodate that. You don't have to travel, but if you like traveling and doing games in out-of-town locations, we can accommodate that. We currently have about 60 to 65 active members. We'd like to get up over the 70 mark again. It makes it a little bit easier on everybody. We work games from tyke and, quote unquote fun summer ball all the way through Bantam and Midget with NCAFA. We do high school, junior football. We also do, high school football. We do junior football, semi-pro, and we provide support crews for the university and CFL games, which are played in the city. And that's something that Keith was just talking to you about. And actually later on, when you see a session that we taped a couple of days ago with Marty Carreau, a CFL official now, who's done a couple of Grey Cups and been in the league for 15 years, he actually started as a ball boy too. So Keith, there's still hope for you there. We're a member of the Canadian Football Officials Association, and we operate using the Canadian Amateur Rulebook for football at almost all of the levels that we do. The CFOA provides a national governing body. It provides insurance, training programs for us, and a variety of other services that support what we do at the EOTFOA level. We also have our own mentoring, training, and evaluation programs for our officials. And the goal is to try and improve our skills and our consistency. And, consistency is one of the number one things that we hear as a complaint. And it's one of the most difficult things to achieve. And when you get on a football field and actually start doing this, you really understand how hard it is, because everyone's got their way of doing things, but we really work hard towards trying to be consistent game in and game out. In terms of a good official, my own definition goes something like this. They're a person who goes onto that field every game as prepared as they can be. They give 100% effort for the players and the coaches. They work to stay calm when something goofy happens or when all hell breaks loose. And it doesn't happen every game, but it does sometimes happen. They have good rules knowledge, and they're constantly striving to get better. Our best officials are the folks who, whether they've been on the field for 5 or 10 or 35 years, are still trying to learn new things and get better. Some of the things we need to learn as officials are having what we call soft eyes. Don't just focus in on the football. We need to stay in our zones of responsibility so that as often as possible, we're watching all the players on the football field all the time, because you never know when something's going to happen. We need to understand not just the letter of the rule, but the intent of it. We need to work on our conflict resolution skills, and we really, really need to work together as a unit. Officials are the third team on the football field, and if you come out and do some games, you will quickly learn that that is the case. Finally, we have to be unbiased. No matter where we played, who we played for, or whether a team or a coach was a problem the last game we did, or whether they're always a problem, doesn't matter. We can't let that color our judgment when we go out onto the football field to do a game. We have to bury the feelings. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But rest easy, because after a while, it becomes part of the culture of officiating. You do acquire the skills and you wear them just like a uniform when you put it on. So we'll talk more about some of the skills a little bit later, but for now, that's a pretty good overview, I think. Let's turn things back to Keith so that he can introduce you to a couple of our outstanding young officials. And hey, here's a little teaser for you. One of these two officials, when he was 19 years old 2 years ago, officiated an Ontario high school championship.
Thank you very much, Don. So, like many of you, I think it might just be one of our guys here tonight, but like many of you guys that are on the call here today, a lot of our officials are former players. And tonight we are happy to have a young lad by the name of Callum, and he has made the transition from player to official brilliantly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to our vice president of our association, Justin Andrews, and he's going to do a little bit of a Q&A with Callum. So over to you, Justin and Callum.
Thanks, Keith.
As mentioned, I'm Justin Andrews, the vice president of our association, and we'll let Callum give a quick introduction of himself.
Sure. I'm Cal McLeod. I've been reffing now for 4 or 5 years, I think. I made the transition from player as well. I played in Orleans all my life for the Panthers and the Bengals, and provincial football too. So I've been around football for a long time, and I'm enjoying officiating now.
To sort of launch into it, sort of what caught your interest in wanting to move from a player into officiating?
Sure. So my playing career, I felt like was drawing near its end. I was always out of time for practices. When you're practicing 3 times a week, you have a game on the weekend. You don't have time for a lot of things. So I realized that I was going to be done soon. And I also needed I needed a job too, right? I was like 15, 16. So officiating felt like a great way where I could do games on the weekend, make a bit of money, and get job experience at the same time, all while staying in with football. So that was it was a perfect fit.
And as a bit of a sort of a fun, what surprised you the most about becoming an official?
I think probably the physical aspect. I didn't always realize that officials were doing 2 games at a time, right? I mean, the level of physicality needed to be out there for 3 hours on a July or August day is definitely, it's up there. You're on your feet. You don't get to go off between plays. So definitely gained some respect for all the officials over the years, and how much you have to run and move, especially when you're on the sideline, trying to keep up with those long runs.
That's always the fun one.
Oh, yes.
As you would say, as coming from being a player, what skills did you find transferred into officiating very well?
Definitely the ability to notice tendencies, play what play was going to come up, right? When you see players set information, which way are they looking, which way are the receivers set up, or the running backs looking, and it definitely helped me have an idea of where a play was going to go, where the action was going to be, what I need to look out for, right? So because I was a player just a year or two earlier, committing the holding penalties on the outside, being a part of all those playbooks. So it's definitely made the transition easier. I can when plays are coming my way, how they were going to develop, and so it helped take that off my mind while I was trying to think about which rules I should call, how to apply them, and all that. So yeah.
Now, as you mentioned, your playing career has wrapped up. How has this helped keep you involved with the game?
For sure. So I definitely feel like being able to be out there for half the year doing games, stay involved with the teams I used to play for, with the other officials, and like Keith, I do the support staff. I run balls for the Red Blacks. It's just being part of that community at large has been a net positive. Getting to keep up, see how all the next generation is doing. It's exciting, Just even being down on the field, right, where you can't be anymore once you're done playing it's a good time.
Why did you pick officiating as opposed to coaching per se, for example?
I think coaching still had a lot of the similar time constraints, right? You had to be available Monday, Wednesday, Friday to be with your team to practice. You had to do all of that. As a younger official as well, I mean, making money is important, right? Having that money to spend when you're in school and everything. And so I definitely think it was a great time just to make a bit of side cash as well as staying involved without giving away all your free time.
You've done an OFSA Bowl game down in Hamilton. Drink was probably there for that one as well, just to throw a name out there. How did you find that? Like, what was it like walking on a field? I mean, granted, there's not 20,000 fans booing you, but what was sort of the experience involved with like the pre-games, all like the environment around it?
Oh, the experience was a highlight of my career, and it really gave me insight to how much preparedness goes into each game, right? I mean, it was doing 6-man mechanics, which I'd never done before, with two of the top teams on Ontario, right, at the high school level, and then with a crew with a couple people I've hadn't worked with before. So it was a lot of new things all at once, and it was really interesting studying for the game, doing the pre-game, learning about all their tendencies, what we need to look out for, how to work as the crew, how my other officials are going to help me out on the field. And then again, being in Hamilton 6 hours away at a field I'd never refed at before, trying to handle that experience, take it all in at once. And even though there weren't 20,000 fans, there's still a good full bleacher full. And so dealing with the unhappiness when I make a call or a non-call. Yeah.
So to wrap this all up then, what would you say was the biggest draw and what's left you the happiest with being an official?
I definitely think the biggest draw was just trying to stay involved with the game, not fizzing out and just watching NFL on the weekends with a beer, actually being out with the community.
Thanks a lot for stopping by, Callum.
Thank you for having me talk.
Really nice to hear from you, Callum. Good job on the interview there, Justin. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Don at this point, who's going to take us through what is expected of officials. There are high expectations and high standards, and Don will take you through a little bit about what I'm talking about there. Go ahead, Don.
Everything I'm going to talk about here really goes to two things: attitude and professionalism. And if you are able to display both of these things, then you're really going to have a chance to excel as an official. Really important thing, have a decent fitness level. You don't need to be able to run a marathon, but if you're going to do a double header on a 30-degree summer day, it's no fun if you're in poor shape. It's very, very difficult, and it can actually, you can make yourself sick. So having a good fitness level is a good thing. And again, you don't have to be a rabbit, but you need to be able to stay out there, and you need to be able to make the calls in the last minute of the second game as well as in the first minute of the first game. Never stop, and Callum said it. He was surprised by the physicality. What most people don't realize is that almost every official on the field will run on almost every play until you get to the very high levels when you have 7 or possibly 8 officials on the field. And even then, most officials are going to move on most plays. So never stop working to know and understand the rules. And this is going to come from self-study. It's going to come from training sessions. It's going to come from attending meetings. It's going to come from group rules study, once we're allowed to get back together again. But hey, People can get together by Zoom and go over sections of the rule book. It's a big, complicated book. And I don't want to get you too immersed in that, but when you start out, we'll help you, we'll guide you by giving you information about the rules that it's most important for you to know and understand in the early portion of your career. And then as you progress, your knowledge will expand. Critiques and assessments. You need to be able to accept criticism. And I'm not talking about the fans here. The fans are background noise. Our association, we do our darndest to try and do both crew and individual evaluations. Hopefully each official gets looked at once or twice a year. And you're also going to get feedback from experienced officials when you work from them. During a team timeout or during an injury timeout, a more experienced official may come over and talk to you about something that you're doing on the sideline or not doing on the sideline and just give you tips and pointers that are designed to help you out. It's almost always positive, and as long as you accept it as that, then the whole idea is to help you out. That's what we're here for. One of the things we have to watch for is conflicts of interest, and we're very careful about that. So basically, if you're still playing ball while you're still playing at a certain level, you wouldn't officiate that level. If you were playing for, Myers or Canada or Orleans, you wouldn't officiate any games involving those teams. If there was a playoff game, or if there was a season game coming up that maybe had playoff implications for a team from your organization, we'd also try and remove you from that situation. And there's two reasons for that. It protects you from anybody, claiming that you threw a penalty or didn't throw a penalty or throw a flag because you were biased. It protects the association from those accusations as well. We have to be seen as unbiased. That is the number one thing. We have to have our integrity. If we don't have that, we have nothing. So, in addition to, the previous things that sort of go towards attitude, there's also professionalism. And this is the same sort of thing that you're expected at school and in your job. We expect our officials to show up on time for their games. That's usually a half an hour before game time. At higher levels or in special situations, it might be more. We expect you to attend meetings and training sessions so that you can improve yourself. And that doesn't just mean first year. We expect our most senior officials to go to these meetings as well, because they're offering that you can offer your expertise and help out with our training sessions by doing that. Excuse me. We expect you to look professional. The clean shaven thing used to be a big thing. It's not that big anymore, but if you haven't worked a game that day, then you should show up with a good clean uniform and clean shoes, and you should walk in looking the part. The way you carry yourself, you don't have to carry yourself like an arrogant jerk, but you should walk in there with your head up. You should look confident. You should look happy to be there, and you should be properly dressed. If you're going to a higher level game, you shouldn't be wearing jeans and a torn t-shirt. Let's just put it that way. There's also, how we deal with our coaches, players, and fans. And we always, always, always have to be the better man or woman. Always. Our job is to diffuse these things. And boy, it can be difficult. There can be situations where someone's gotten under your skin, but you really have to try. You have to be courteous and patient. And, and that's from the moment you get out of your car or off the bus, if you're taking a bus to the park, to the moment you leave. So that's just a couple of the things. But if you do these things, you'll enjoy yourself. They'll become rote for you. They'll become second nature. You'll really have a great time. You'll make a lot of friends in the association, and you'll probably have a long, successful career as a football official. So I think that covers most of the points I wanted to say. So Keith, we'll throw it back to you.
Thank you very much, Don. And for the next part, we're going to highlight some of the growing diversity that we have in the association. We're always pleased to have people of all different ilks, and we've been fortunate to have a couple of our female officials sit with Don and do a bit of a fireside chat. So we've got a brief interview with those two. So one is Maureen Frank, I should say. She was an EOT FOA official for 9 years, working games up to the midget level before she retired from the field a couple of years ago. And Jillian Axton, who's been an official in Ottawa and Montreal for 7 years and currently works games up to the bantam level. So they're both in conversation with referee-in-chief Don Wilcox.
we're going to get straight into it. What was the thing that made you the most nervous or afraid the first few times you were on the football field, and how did you handle that?
I guess from my perspective, what made me the most nervous was any football game I had ever watched previously. The refs always seemed that in, and you learn so much from the other people on the field.
As a female official, did you find special challenges that maybe guys didn't have to deal with, and that and how did you overcome them?
The thing that I found the most difficult, I never had any problems with the other refs. The challenge was the commentary, especially when I first started, of, oh, here comes the female ref. As if my gender had something to do with how I wear my stripes or how well I'm going to do my job. And I don't think the coaches and the kids meant it necessarily negatively, but I don't think my gender had anything to do with how well I ref or how poorly I ref. And whether that was, I think after I got used to it and they got used to me, the comments stopped. But being there are fewer female refs in the association, I think that became a point of difference, and differences can often be pointed out, not necessarily in a positive way.
What keeps you on the field, Maureen? Let's throw this one over to you. What kept you on the field for the 9 years that you were officiating?
The opportunity to give back. Both my children played football. They loved it. It was an opportunity to enjoy the sport. It's a phenomenal sport. It's an opportunity to give back. And it was an opportunity to be part of an amazing team. The referee association, the colleagues I refereed with, unparalleled, absolutely unparalleled. And it was learning environments, a great social environment, and I wouldn't turn back those years for anything.
Did you learn things about yourself when you were out on the football field that you may not have learned if you hadn't gone out there and faced that challenge?
Yeah, I think the best thing I learned is a couple of things. One is how confidence can build over time, and the criticalness of having a good, stable base and sense of humor. Defusing, keeping control of the game, having a positive outlook, and expressing that positive outlook to the people that you're refereeing with, well, as well as the coaches. The referee is able to set the tone of the game. And if you can set a tone of the game so that it's an amazing experience for the players, you've done a great job.
Thanks. Jillian, how about yourself? What keeps you? Maureen has retired. She retired a couple of years ago. Jillian, what's kept you on the field? You're, I believe, 7 years into officiating now.
The people, for sure. I, as a former coach, I always love teaching, the teaching part of the game. Football to me is chess on cleats. It's moving, it's strategy, it's all of those things that I like as a sport, and then to combine it with teaching. And that communication that I get to do while reffing is a form of teaching. Nothing more inspirational to me than seeing the kid finally understand why his coach has been telling him not to do X, Y, or Z, because he's going to get a penalty. And there's the penalty, and it happened, and he understands now that, yes, you can't do that because you can't. It's the rules. And so that kind of thing really has kept me involved in watching the kids grow into players and move through the system and become changed by the team sport.
And unfortunately, we're getting short on time because these segments are very, very tight tonight. But I just want to ask both of you one more question. And Jillian, you're up, so let's start with you. What would you say to a female who's out there and considering getting into football officiating?
Oh, come, try it. You'll meet some incredible people. And if you like the sport, you will find a place for yourself. There is a place in every refereeing group. There's a spot for you, and you'll bring your skills and help change the game and have it grow.
And Maureen, I'll give you the last word.
Whatever gender you are, this is an opportunity to develop your skills, develop your competence, and be part of a very, very valuable team. You'll feel valued, you'll feel worthwhile, and it's just an amazing opportunity, and embrace it. If you're interested in officiating, embrace it regardless of who you are.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank both of you for taking the time to do this. Take care, ladies, and have a great day.
So thank you very much. That was a great interview and really good, interesting feedback from those folks, and we really appreciate that. And now an exciting piece for the ambitious group of those of you out there, how to move up the ranks in our association, where you're going to begin if you do join us, and where you can possibly end up. So I'm going to pass it over to Justin right now, who has, he got the university call up in 2019.
Absolutely. So the whole point of the sort of the moving up the ranks is kind of to sum up, if we get you interested, if you come out and you start officiating, sort of what to expect the first year. What can you expect from us? We told you what we expect from our officials, but what can you expect from us as an association? What type of games are you going to do? That kind of thing. So to diving right in, new officials generally start at the lower levels, doing tyke, mosquito, the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds. And this is not because officials can't do better, but it's a good way to build the foundation. The playbooks are simpler. There's not a lot of complex plays being run at the time. So it gives you the chance to build your mechanics, get used to applying the rules. And a little bit less stressful of an environment than throwing you right into an OPFL game, for example. If you show you can handle the lower levels, you've got good judgment. You know when a penalty is a penalty. As was mentioned, it's not just the black and white of the rules. What's the intent of the rule? And the big question that always has to be asked is, was there an advantage gained by that potential foul? If you can master those two concepts, you'll have a bang up first year if you can run on the line of scrimmage. One of the keys is availability. You get to set your availability. Obviously, we'd prefer maximum availability every day, 9 in the morning to 9 at night. I'd be happy as the high school assigner because I'm always scrambling for people weekday daytime for high school. We start as early as March with our spring leagues. We move into summer football, and we have our peak in fall, obviously, with high school and everything. But if you're available on a Saturday, you go into our system, you say, I'm available. If there's something a level that you're qualified to do, we'll definitely be looking at putting people onto our assigners. So once you start to get the reps under your belt, you start to get some experience, get some comfort. You may be working with a stick crew as the head linesman or down judge now. You could be working, getting used to dealing with players on the line, dealing with the offsides, the procedures. Then we'll be looking at getting you some evaluations. We've got several types of evaluations, as Don mentioned. We've got more than he mentioned, but one of the other nice things we can provide, pending availability, is working on support crews. As people mentioned, doing sticks, doing balls. If you're on an OPFL game or a university game on a support crew, you've got some of the best officials in the province within arm's reach of you that judiciously, most of them will be willing to talk to you. We'll give you the resources. We want to see you take the resources and get yourself to the point where we're willing to trust you at a higher level. Then we'll put you onto a higher level and see how it goes. We may have an evaluation of one of many evaluations done at that point, and we'll provide you some feedback. Then we'll look and say, hey, how well did this go? Does the person have potential? Do they need some more time at a junior level? there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to get to that point. That's kind of what we can provide to help you move up.
Well said, Justin. As always, we're going to ask Cameron Franklin to join in. Great guy. And the cool part about Cameron, he's from the States, and he's been doing NCAA Division I football, which is, phenomenal. He's now part of our association. We're very lucky to have him, and he immediately began doing university games, as does Justin. Justin got the call up to the university level 2019. So these guys are going to talk to you about taking it even further to the next level. So Cameron Franklin and Justin.
Hey guys, well, just a small correction. It was Division II.
Oh.
But you don't see those guys until the playoffs. You really don't see them on TV until the playoffs come around. But yeah, a very high level of football with NCAA Division II, and as well as NAIA, which is pretty much on the same level as the Division II. I think we were talking about moving up. When I first started, I wasn't even interested in moving up. If someone would have told me back in 2002 that I would be in Canada officiating football, I would have definitely taken the under. At that time, I had a 4-year-old son and a newborn on the way, and I just wanted some money for diapers and formula, and to build a strong relationship with my dad. So growing up, I played football. My dad was always there at all my games. He was a coach. Funny story, he coached against me in high school. So the team, high school he coached at, we got a chance to play each other my senior year in high school, which was weird because the entire week we didn't talk to each other. And when I would come downstairs, I would see him. He would always turn off the TV because he was watching film. And then when I go back upstairs, he turned the TV back on. So it was a weird week. But then after my career ended, you kind of go your own way, start your family. And then he was officiating football. He had been doing baseball and softball for 20 years. And he convinced me to come to a meeting. And when I first got to the meeting, it seemed like a Lions Club meeting. All these guys were sitting around, shooting the breeze and talking trash. And when I first started there, I was a stick crew member. I was okay with that. It was getting like $18 a game. And I was doing the math in my head. Okay, well, 2 games can get me a big box of diapers. And, so I was okay with that, right? Like, that's kind of where I was then. After my 3rd year, someone came to me and asked me, was I interested in getting onto the field? And of course, yes. And it kind of just took off from there. Started doing like 8th grade football and youth leagues at that time. And some of our evaluators would come to those games and evaluate us at the youth league games, similar to what the guys are doing here. So the fraternity, even though we're 2,000 miles away, we still have a lot of similarities in the mechanics and the philosophies. Someone came to me at one of those youth league games and asked me, was I ready to go on to a varsity football crew? And, I wasn't going to say no. I was like, yes. But the first game, I didn't know what I was doing. I was all over the place. Sometimes I still don't know what I'm doing. But that's the good thing about it is we're always learning. I think we're all are here officiating for these many years is because we're trying to have that perfect game. We're chasing that perfect game that the higher ups and the mentors always tell us we'll never have. And I think there's a part of us that want to prove them wrong. So we just keep doing it year after year, trying to find that perfect game. One day I'm going to get it. But I'm sure it'd be like a hole-in-one by myself. Nobody would be there to see it, so nobody would believe it. As far as like coming in as a new guy, starting out, I would say focus on mechanics first because the rule books will have your head spinning. And so my mentors always taught me to get familiar with the mechanics manual first, because if you know the rules, but if you don't know where to be when you apply the rules, it's going to be hard to sell that call. So they would always say, hey, know your mechanics. And that way, if you make the call and you're standing in the right spot when you make that call, it's hard for them to argue that. So I kind of took that with me. Mechanics, then rules. Because once you find out that those mechanics are actually a little bit easier than the rules when you focus on your job and task at hand. Piggyback on the fitness level is very important. Your fitness level is everything. It's the first thing that people see when you step out in the field. And I know we're in this new day and age of sensitivity, but you're still going to be judged. So I think Don Wilcox had mentioned, if you're unshaven, if you're sloppy looking, right away they're going to think, oh, he or she is not going to be ready to do this game. So you definitely want to make sure you keep your hygiene up and just use your own personality. Like, don't try to do too much. I'm typically a quiet guy. As most guys know, I don't really talk too much. I just come do the job, go home, I'll have a beer, and then that's about it. But use your own personality, be friendly, be coachable, take criticism, constructive criticism, but also be strong. Sometimes your evaluators want to see, how strong you are. And sometimes they may give you a question or give you a critique to see how confident you were in that call that you made or may not have made. So if you feel strong in a call that you had, don't waver. Like, I wouldn't say argue with the evaluator there on the field, but also, there's time and place to have that conversation afterwards. And a lot of times you get the respect, but if you're always wavering with your evaluators, then they'll think that you'll waver when you get on the field with the coaches. And that's something that you don't want to do, because now you're chasing penalties, because now one coach thinks that you're giving one team more favors than the other. So that's all I want to say, unless anybody's got any questions or anything.
I think that was outstanding, Cameron. Thank you very much for that. We're actually, I should mention, we're gonna open it up to the floor to all these attendees at the end of the presentation. So the final part of the presentation here today is, again, another interview with Don. We have a guy in the association. His name is Marty Carreau, and he's been part of our association since he was 23 years old. I don't know how old he is now. He must be about older than that. God knows. He's been a CFL official for 15 years. Despite reaching the top, he still does the minor games. He does minor junior games in and around Ottawa every single year. He loves it. And during this presentation, this video, which we're going to show you, it's been edited to fit tonight's format, Marty is in conversation, as I mentioned, with Don Wilcox. So I'll get that going. I'll try not to lose the audio this time.
Marty, just tell us a little bit about how you got involved in officiating and what were your initial goals, if you had any initial goals.
I was about 23 years old, and I was roughing touch football, and there was a guy there that, he had mentioned to me that I kind of knew quite a bit about football, and if I'd be interested in officiating some tackle football. So I kind of took him up on his word and went down to a Monday night meeting. At that time, it was at the Police Association, and I was quite intrigued of the camaraderie about, with the guys and everything. And then I quickly realized there was one part of the game I didn't know a lot about, which was the officiating side. I mean, we all know the general rules, and how they're applied and stuff, but then there was, when you get those 2 and 3 penalties on a play, it's like, maybe I don't know a lot about this side of the game. From there, it just brought me right into this officiating world.
Yeah. What motivated you to stay involved?
Once I started doing some games, I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the guys. Hey, I was involved in football, and it was, closest seat to the action, and it was a lot of fun, and you're doing mosquito ball or tyke ball, and then you want to do pee-wee ball, and you wanted to do Bantam ball, and then it's like, you saw these guys that were officiating at higher levels, and it's like, hey, I'd like to get on the field with those guys at that level.
Now, you've got about 15 years in the CFL. It takes a little bit of time to get there. What were the key things? First of all, how did you get involved in the CFL's prospect program?
Well, in Ottawa, when we had the Renegades and stuff and the Rough Riders, of course, we provide the, support crew. So I asked to be like a ball boy and stuff like that. And, I'd go to the games anyway. So I thought, well, maybe if I could be down on the field and do the job as a ball boy for the local association. And then I quickly got to meet some of the other officials from the CFL. It motivated me to want to be in their shoes, hopefully one day.
Now, Marty, there's getting there and then there's staying there, and you've managed to stay there. Not everybody does.
Getting there was one thing. Staying there was that much harder because there's new prospects that come in every year. And you got to go out on the field. You got to perform. You got to perform at a high level. And you don't want to let your crewmates down. You want to be there. You want to be prepared. Going in and week out and being prepared for your games is the majority of the time you spend. You might spend 3 hours on the field, but you might spend 10 hours preparing for that 3-hour game.
Officials feel this the first time they get a championship game at any level. When you get a championship game in the cafe, it's a thrill. When you get an Ontario championship game, or you're doing an Ontario high school playdown game, that's also a thrill. But the Grey Cup is the top. What does it feel like when you stand out there for the first time?
It's the most amazing feeling, as an official, because you now know you're just about to do the biggest game in this country. It's like a drug, like once you do one, you want to do two, you want to do three, it's like, it's such an amazing feeling. And the time goes by so quickly. I remember doing my first game in the CFL, and I thought I was so lost in that game, but I was so focused on what I was doing that 3 hours later, it's like, oh, it's over. Like it felt like, you were out there for a half hour. Doing the Grey Cup is like the pinnacle of everything, right? So yeah. I've done so many games and so many playoff games and now 3 championship games. It's just like, wow, I want to do more.
Just to tie a couple of things together, when Marty's on the sideline, if I'm also on the crew, I know that we don't have to worry about that sideline that night because Marty knows his job. He knows the rules. He understands the mechanics. He knows game management, and that's probably one of the highest things that you can say about an official. And when we talk about being a good official, those are vital elements about a good on-field official. So, Marty, thank you very much for doing this. Really appreciate your time. And we're going to kick it back over to Keith.
So great job on that interview. It's Marty's he's an interesting cat, and obviously he's something that a lot of us aspire to do someday. And that pretty much, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the scripted portion of our presentation here tonight. So what we'd like to do now is just kind of throw it open to the floor, and any questions that anybody may have that they want to fire away, please by all means go ahead and we'll see what we can do.
I got a question if you don't mind. It's actually a bit of a tough question. How's it going, guys?
Excellent.
All right, perfect. Where's Franklin? Franklin, don't worry, you're gonna get that perfect game, baby. Look, I've been around football a lot, specifically around the CAFA, CJFL, QJFL. I've played since I was tyke. My little brother's just signed with CIS. I had an older brother play at Concordia. I had another brother play at Bishops. Recently, I'd say the last 7 or 8 years, I've really been around football because I've been at all of my little brother's games, playing for Canada. And there's one thing I've noticed is that there's still a lot of discussing politics involved in a lot of these teams, groups, coaches. What kind of politics, what kind of internal politics are within the refs, or are people dragging each other down to get to the top, to get to the CFL, or is it more of a team? And I know it's a tough question to answer, and I just want to be honest. That's really what's on my mind, honestly.
Tristan, you and I have talked several times on the sidelines, so I'm actually glad you asked a question like that. I'm never going to say that there aren't internal conflicts within an association, because anytime you put 3 adults in a room, you're going to have disagreements. But I've been here since '96, and the balance of the vast majority of what has happened within the association has been good over those years. That's not to say we don't have our disagreements. We do. And, and yes, there are some personality conflicts, just the same as if you get into a class of 30 people, you're not going to want to go out and, you're not going to want to sit and have lunch with all 30 of them. But what is the most important is that when we get out on the football field to do a game, it doesn't matter whether the guy's your buddy or somebody that you just do the game with and then leave. You have to be on the same page for that game, and you can't let anything that's off the field interfere with you. So in terms of our relationships within the association, it's actually pretty good. And maybe is Callum still here? Because Callum's one of our younger officials. He's only been around for a couple of years. He's an incredibly talented young official, and I'm so happy he was able to be on this call, because he is, I think he's 21 years old now, and Callum was the second 19-year-old in this association to do an Ontario high school football game. And for anybody who may think that the old guys get all the good games, well, in 2018 and in 2019, this association, probably no one else in the province has done it, put a 19-year-old onto the field at a high school Ontario championship, officiating players, some of whom may actually have been a little bit older than they were. So I'm not going to say it's perfect. It's not. But we do the best we can, and for the vast majority of us, we get along really well, and we really enjoy each other's company, because it is a fraternity, and because when we're out there on that football field, we are what we have, and if we're not together, then we're going to have a real big problem, and we're not going to do our job, which is what we're there. We're the only people on that football field who get paid, and so we at Darnwell better earn our money. Hey, I see Callum in there. Callum, what has your experience been as a young official?
I definitely, I don't I don't want to pussyfoot around. I have noticed there's some conflict, but it doesn't at all affect your ability to move. Like I've wanted to move up, right? I think I've talked with other officials. They asked me, and that support's always been there. That as long as you play well with others, right? If you don't go around starting fights, there is going to be that room to move up, and everyone's going to be there to support you. Like I like Jaden, John Pinch is another one. They've really experienced guys have all been there to support me and help me along. So as a young official, I definitely feel like that's not one of the things you have to worry about if you want to move up and do those higher level games. It's hard. Like sometimes I don't even feel happy with my own experiences. After the OFSA game, I got a long talk up after. Was it you actually, Murray? I think that was you who evaluated me. It's definitely, so there's always lots to work on, but I think the room for growth is definitely there, and you shouldn't be worried about that. If you are good and you can work, you will go up. So, yeah.
Guys, thank you. I know that was a unusual, unorthodox question, but thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Sorry to interrupt here. Just let me put my 2 cents worth in, Tristan. That was not an unorthodox answer or question. That is asked at every association across this province. And a lot of the situations deal with timing. It's all about timing. It's when you can put yourself in a specific slot to advance. There may be an opportunity for you to advance at a certain level, okay? And sometimes it's all about timing. But your question was That's asked at every association across the province. So that was a good question.
Yes. Sorry, is your name Bara?
Yeah, you can call me Bear or Billy if you want.
I'll go with Bear.
All right. I got a question. So, like, I'm playing football right now. Well, not right now, but I do play football, and I was wondering, when officiating comes back, can I do both of them? Do you think it's possible or no?
Absolutely, it is. Yes. Now, what level are you playing at right now?
I'm in Bantam.
Okay, so I mean, in your first year or two, you would do mainly younger games anyway. So
Yeah.
you would and that sounds weird, but when you get on the football field, you'll understand why. And actually, Justin described it really well. He said it gives you a base. If we put you out there in Pee Wee and Bantam games where everything's happening fast and you don't even understand the mechanics yet, we're not doing you a service because we're putting you in a situation where you could fail. And that's not what we want to do. We want you to succeed. And Callum's a perfect example of that. First year or two, he was doing the younger guys. And then he had the opportunity to do some Pee Wee and Bantam games. So by that time, you would have moved, you probably have moved up to midget or so it probably wouldn't be a big issue. When we were talking about conflicts of interest, depending on what club you're playing for, you wouldn't officiate any games involving your club. And again, if there was a game at the end of the season that might have, what club do you play for?
I play for the Nepean Eagles.
Okay, so if there was a game involving, Myers and Bell, and it may have playoff implications, a mosquito game, say, and you had a good season and you're working tight in mosquito games, we would not put you on that game if it had playoff implications for your team because it puts you in an impossible situation and it opens us up to the possibility of somebody saying, hey, that guy, how can you have a guy on the field who plays for the Eagles? Because if Bell wins that game, they're going to be in the Eagles are in the playoffs. And so, he threw 4 flags against Bell and none against, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So all of those things go into it, but absolutely. And the other thing that you can do as a player as well is you can get on sticks crews and on sideline crews, and that may not sound like the sexiest thing in the world, but when you're on those crews, you're standing on the sideline beside guys who are working high level games, and you can talk to them during the game. And a lot of if you ever get a chance to talk with Callum or one of our other younger officials, Callum or Maroon or Matt or any of those guys, they will tell you that the experience of being able to talk with the more experienced officials really helped them out too, especially after you've been on the field a few times, because that's when you start to think, okay, wow, this actually is really a different world. But once you realize how things work, then you can talk to officials about what you're doing and difficulties that you're having, and they'll help you out with that stuff. So probably a little bit more than you were looking for, but I hope that answers your question.
Yep, it certainly does. Thank you very much.
Another great question. So Felix has a question that says, can you comment on work-life balance? What is the typical number of games expected per week? I used to be able to do quite a few, but had to slow down as we built our family. But my youngest will be 3. Sounds familiar. Things are easier than they used to. But still doing 5 to 6 games per week is not yet really possible. So what is the expectation for somebody that's joining the association in terms of availability?
As one of the assigners, I can talk a little bit to that. I mean, we have officials that do anywhere from I think I did almost 300 games one year, down to people that do 10 games over the entire season. It's your availability. You pick when you're available. We don't have a minimum expectations. If you can do 10 games a year, that's 10 games that we have one less problem with in terms of our personnel. Obviously, the more games you do a year, the faster it will be to get the experience, to get the repetitions under your belt. And the more experience you have, you'll actually notice that the plays actually start to slow down. The defensive players, I know some I talked to Maroon before, and he says things start to move slower the more experienced you get at it.
And Justin, I'll just add one thing for Felix as well. You get to input into our scheduling system when you're available. So if you're not available for 2 weeks because of work or family or something happens, then you just take yourself off the availability list and you won't get assigned games. If you're, very available for a couple of weeks, then you may get games 3 or 4 days in a row. Other weeks, depending on the quantity of games, you may get a couple. So, but you get to choose when you're available and when you're not available.
From my just a quick perspective, it's actually the difference between being a coach and being an official. It's part of the reason I joined officiating was I traveled extensively for my company, and you really can't do that if you're going to be a coach. You have to be there every game, every practice, etc. So this kind of really does give you the avenue to allow you to work according to your availability. So it is good for that. So with that, sir, I'd like to thank everybody once again for showing up. The final question that I have for Don and Justin, guys, if somebody saw this today and they were considering joining the association, what would be the next step for somebody to take to kind of go to the next step?
All righty. Well, it's very simple. We have a website, eotfoa.ca, and click on our recruiting page. The links are there. You can drop us a note. For all of the members, for all of the people who've been good enough to join us on this, thank you. I hope you've got a little bit of a sense of our passion for what we do. Officiating is not for everybody. We're not going to lie. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's as tough to be a good official as it is to be a good player, a good coach, a good dad, any of those things. You have to work at it. But those of us who've stuck with it, got it and stuck with it, we love it. And it's a real fraternity. So if you want to give it a shot, please come out. You will get a lot of support and a lot of help, and we'll give you every opportunity that we can to succeed on the field. So Keith,
excellent.
All yours.
Thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the surprise guests that we had here today as well. Thank you very much for coming and contributing.